What are the differences between a class method, static method, and an instance method in Python? There are two types of differences. One related to the variables they can have access to, and two related to how they can be called. Let's see an example. I have defined this class here, so we can go through different methods in this class and see what are the differences among them. This class has a class variable in it. This is a class variable. It means that it has been defined for all the instances. It has been defined in the scope of the class itself. Now the parameter to get access to this variable can be self or CLS. We see this initializer here. When we make an object from this class, we have to provide name and max age for our instance, and these two are our instance variable. To access these two, we have to use self parameters. Now an instance method, here you see it uses self. It can access to both class variable and instance variable. So this instance method can use name, which is an instance variable, as we talked here. It can use species, which is a class variable. So it has access to both of those variables. That's one difference between instance method and class method. A class method has only access to a class variable, not instance variable. Therefore, here we can call cls.species, but we cannot do cls.name. This is going to give us error. And for our static method, the static method is just a regular method in the scope of our class. So this is just the regular method. So it has no access to a instance variable or a class variable. And there are differences in how we call each of these methods. So the first difference was that for an instance method, it has access to both class variable and instance variable. A class method can have access only to class variable, and a static method has no access to either of those. Now for when we make an instance of a class such as animal, we saw in the initializer we had a name and a max age that we have provided here. So animal instance, for example, from animal, its name is Loli and max age is 20. Now when we want to call an instance method, we have to make an instance of that class and then call our instance method. We cannot just go by calling our instance method using animal dot instance method. This is not going to work. So we have to make an object from our class and then use that object dot our method. For class method, on the other hand, we have to basically use the class itself. So we can just go animal.class method. We don't have to use an object. A class method can be applied on the blueprint itself. And for the static method, the same. So we can just use animal.static method. A static method does not have access to self or CLS, and it can just be called like a regular function, but by using the name of the class dot the method. Now if you run this, so now let's run this file and see how are the answers. Okay, the animal instance animal instance dot instance method, when we scroll up, our instance method says this is an instance method for self.name, self.species, and we don't get error. This is an instance method for Loli, a tiger. We've called species and so it's going to give us tiger because the species has been defined tiger. When we call our class method, on the other hand, we get animal.class method. Our class method uses species, and this is a class method. The species is now cls.species. The species is now dangerous tiger because we have overridden that species class variable, and we are able to do that within a class method. For our static method, we just use the animal.static method, and we have to get this sentence, which is this is a static method, it cannot access class or instance variables. So the for an instance method, it has to be called by creating an object, and it has access to both class variables and instance variables. For a class method, on the other hand, no need to create object. It has access to only class variable. And for a static method, no need to create object, and it has access to no CLS nor our instance variables.